Well, good morning, damn fam. It is Tuesday, June 30th, Canada Day Eve, and today on the Daily Beaver Morning Show, we will be talking about a most excellent interview that CTV News's Vassy Kapelos had with US Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, in which she seems to have gotten under his skin and in which, if you had been paying attention, he threatened us. Yes, again. Yes, again. We'll also talk about Canada having made some history at the World Cup. And if we've got time to throw a couple of other things in it, we will as well. So grab your favorite bevy because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number. I do not know off the top of my head now. I was looking for an article and I kind of forgot it off the top. Episode number 937, thank you, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian, and of course, always be verific. Today, recording day is Tuesday, June 30th. It's Canada Day Eve 2026. And it started off as a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge, but it's gotten a little gray here. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I'm doing better. For those of you who are watching and who were here yesterday, you saw my failed attempt at trying to put on a show yesterday because our platform once again went completely haywire. So I am now broadcasting out of incognito mode, which apparently seems to be working. Don't know why it wasn't working in regular mode. Haven't been able to figure it out why, but we just know that it's working this way. So we're going to be doing it this way until we kind of figure out why it doesn't work the other way. uh, so yeah, it's a little more work, unfortunately for me, and they'll make some transitions perhaps not as smooth as they should be, but I'm going to get used to this new way of doing things because, again, this beaver can learn new tricks, and I will figure it out. But at least we can have our show, and that's what's really important here. All right. As well, yesterday I had lunch, you could say, or brunch, even though it was a weekday, with my good friend Heather. And fortunately, the pancakes did not result in any food related issue because I've had a few lately. If you have been following the show, I had mysterious croutons jump into my salad about a week ago Wednesday when I went out for a meal with the volleyball team. And then I had food poisoning on the eve of the mental health walk. So on the day of the mental health walk, really, is the day I had food poisoning. I ate whatever I did on the eve. And then 2 days later, I was out having dinner with Mr. Grizzly and ordered the same thing I always order at a place I frequently go to. And for some reason, there was some cross contamination and I had an allergic reaction. So it was a little trepidatious about the pancakes because all of these mm, unfortunate food events happened at places where I've eaten before, where I've ordered things I have ordered before, and therefore should not be a problem. But there was some juju going on in the universe, I guess. But the pancakes were completely fine. I had a great day, had a great time with my friend Heather, came home, did a little bit of work. My beaver sweetie, who was away for the weekend, came back. It was nice to see him, got some cuddles. So I am a very happy beaver right now. And very, very calm. Yeah. Kit Toronto Dan, and what did you learn from the croutons, Douglas? Don't eat stupid salad. Well, that's why I try to eat good salad. I'm not that much into stupid salad. I try to eat the smart salad. Oh, man. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, let's see, kits and cubs. So yeah, other than that, mental health doing very, very well. I mean, not other than that, mental health doing fairly well. And of course, we're getting ready for my second favorite day of the year, which is, of course, Canada Day. Got my flag over here because this one will be replaced soon because we're getting to the end of the month of June. We're getting to the end of uh, National Indigenous History Month and, of course, National Pride Month. And I sort of have a two-in-one flag here for that. So that will be coming down. We'll be putting the Canada flag up. I do not know if I will be doing a live show tomorrow because my beaver sweetie and I are debating whether or not we want to go to Ottawa for Canada Day. It's been a while since I've been in Ottawa for Canada Day, and I think it could be a very good time. If that is the case, we probably would be leaving tonight. So I might not be able to do a live show because we don't have the same internet capability at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge. So shows for the first and the second, a little bit up in the air. They might be pre-records if I have time to do them today. If we don't go, tonight, if we decide that we're going to go tomorrow at some point during the day, then I will have a morning show as usual. So, schedule's a little bit up in the air for the next few days, but hopefully, I will be able to get some content out for you for the next 2 days because there is a lot to talk about. And given that we missed 2 days last week and we had that technical issue yesterday, I'm kind of 3 days behind in my content. So, in terms of everything that I've amassed. So, hopefully, I will be able to deliver that to you. Today, we are going to focus on an interview that I mentioned to you before because CTV had shown the first half of it, I believe, at some point during the week on their daily show, Power Play, and they were saving the rest for this week's question period. And it was an interview with U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, unaffectionately known as Ambassador Doucheface on this show because of his contemptuous stance towards Canada. Of course, this is not new for this particular person, even though he is of Dutch heritage. He was once appointed to be the ambassador of the United States to the Netherlands, got accused of political interference, denied it. They showed him the tape of him committing it, and then basically denied that what he said was what he said. When presented with the evidence, eventually got the boot from the Netherlands for not being good at his job in the eyes of the host country, not being a respectful guest. This is something we would love to do here. Boy, would we ever. In fact, we even had a petition circulating. The odds of that happening here, given Kuzma and everything, and the lack of need for us to be finding ways to irritate the American administration, that won't ultimately yield any benefit for us because even if we declare this particular ambassador to be persona non grata, they are going to send us another one who will probably be worse. So we have the devil we know, even though it would be super cathartic to just give him the boot, which we would all love to do, and he so deserves. There's probably nothing in it for us except more problems, which is probably the only reason for which we haven't done it yet, to be totally honest. However, over the last little while, it was seeming that Mr. Doucheface was trying to present us with a new charm offensive. Or is that with offensive charm? I always get those two mixed up when it comes to him. Oh, well. So I know, I'm petty. I'm petty. But there seemed to be a certain change of tone over the past few interviews we saw with him soon after Donald Trump went back on his Canada doesn't have anything we need rhetoric, going back to his greatest hits, emphasis on hits. And not too long after that, Hoekstra did some media availabilities that seemed to indicate that there were indeed things that Canada had that the United States would need. And there seemed to be two different messages. We're getting lots of mixed messages from the United States, but of course, with Donald Trump, that's the whole thing, right? Never take a firm position on anything, keep destabilizing people, keep threatening to escalate, even though 90% of the time he doesn't follow through, but he does follow through every now and then. So you have to be kept on your toes, concede everything before you even get to the table, and then hopefully they get you to concede more. And then, of course, they never have any intention of really respecting that because at the first opportunity, they turn around and they claim that you violated the deal, and that justifies more action. So, if you're paying attention, at the beginning of all this, the strategy was to get something signed as quickly as possible so that we could have certainty. And even the Canadian public was on board with that. If you were looking at political opinion polling at the time, now that we've seen the attitude of the United States towards us, how it seems they really do not want to get to any type of deal, really, because as the Prime Minister said in a recent press conference, we could have a deal signed tomorrow. It would just be a very bad deal. And the Prime Minister has said, no deal is better than a bad deal. And it seems that Canadians now in public opinion polling um, are on his side on that. Whereas Canadians wanted a deal very quickly at first, now the overwhelming majority of Canadians say, if we don't get one, we don't get one. Right? It's better to wait. So tomorrow is going to be an important day in a sense because it is the day by which All three parties in Kuzma are supposed to indicate whether or not they would like this to continue or whether or not they would like to, I guess, go to the period where you basically renegotiate and review annually every year for 10 years. And hopefully, somewhere in there, you can get a deal where it goes back to another longer period where you're working with that particular deal. Yes, there is the fact that a country can announce with 6 months' notice that it is going to pull out. That does not seem to be particularly in the interest of the United States, at least from everybody in the business community. Donald Trump has a reputation of listening to the last person speaking in his ear. It seems that there are very few people ever speaking in his ear telling him that it's probably a good idea to pull out of this. So that is one thing we have on our side. The other thing that we have on our side is that we've seen with Iran how Donald Trump negotiates. And when he's in a corner, when he really desperately needs a win or things are going wrong for him, as is the case with this deal as well, he's willing to settle for a whole lot less than he came in swinging, asking for. And therefore, there is no particular urgency on our part to make any concessions. According to the Canadian press, and this was sent to me by Kit Elaine, so thank you for this. A key date for critical trade agreement will come and go this week as the United States under President Donald Trump continues to push for concessions from its closest neighbors. The United States is set to officially inform Canada and Mexico on Wednesday its intentions for the Continental Trade Agreement, known in Canada as CUSMA, and all signs indicate it will blow past the July 1st deadline without agreeing. Sorry, let's try that again. The United States is set to officially inform Canada and Mexico on Wednesday its intentions for the Continental Trade Agreement, known in Canada as CUSMA, and all signs indicate it will blow past the July 1 date without agreeing to renew the pact. What are the reasons? And we already knew this was coming. There are extra dates of negotiation with Mexico that were set for past July 1st. So, and Dominique Leblanc has been telegraphing for months now that July 1st was probably not going to be met and it was not going to be a big deal. The July 1 deadline for indicating support for renewal is a mandatory process written into the text of the agreement, and CUSMA will remain in place after Wednesday, no matter what the Trump administration does. Canada and Mexico have said they want a 16-year extension. It also appears to be that given Trump's glowing success in negotiating a deal with Iran, that has stiffened Canada and Mexico's resolve to actually work together and present a united front here, something that may have been envisioned about 8 to 10 months ago, but people thought would have less chance of success. Now it seems that there's probably a stronger chance of success now by doing it this way. And it seems the two countries have picked up on that. Once the Trump administration fails to sign on for the longer-term deal, an annual rolling review of the agreement starts and continues for up to 10 years, at which point CUSMA would expire if it is not renewed. Scott Lincecum, vice president of general economics at the Washington-based Cato Institute, said the review process, if it's done right, offers an opportunity to fix flaws in the agreement and address various bilateral irritants. Quote, but there's a very wide gulf between fixing a good agreement and torching it, Lincecum said during a Cato panel discussion last week in Washington. And it's clear which side we should all be on. Lincecum said that while there's no reason to freak out about the U.S. missing this week's deadline, quote, there is some uncertainty that is increased because of these annual reviews. And let us be clear, it is not us missing the deadline. It is not Mexico missing the deadline. It is United States missing the deadline. They have engineered everything about this to make it such that this does not happen by July 1st. They're the ones that walked away from the table when it comes to negotiating with us. Trump has offered mixed messages, as I mentioned, about the future of the agreement. He told reporters in France, where he was attending the G7 summit earlier in June, that he would rather leave it unsigned or have it terminated. When asked to clarify those statements, Trump said, I would rather not have the agreement, but I may sign it. Clear as mud. Typical Trump strategy. CUSMA stay in place unless one of the partner countries gives 6 months' notice that it is pulling out. Canada and Mexico both have indicated they want to keep the trilateral deal in place. CUSMA was negotiated during the first Trump administration to replace the North American Free Trade Agreement. At the time, Trump called it the best trade agreement ever. And again, Canada and Mexico let it be known way before July 1st that they are willing. The only reason we do not know by July 1st is because the United States still can't give an answer. Again, we are not the problem here. Republican Representative Adrian Smith said the deal was a huge victory during the first Trump administration and has been for a boon. Sorry, there's a typo in that article. Let's try that again. Republican Representative Adrian Smith said the deal was a huge victory during the first Trump administration and has been a boon for agricultural producers and American consumers. Smith, who represents a district in Nevada, said while he's not a fan of tariffs, quote, I think it's reasonable to expect other countries to make some concessions, having access to our markets that they have, and they need to give us access to theirs. We have a free trade agreement. You have access to our markets. And everybody needs to make concessions, not just one side. The framing from the United States is so completely and totally arrogant, constantly. Quote, I would say Canada did not expect Mr. Trump re entering the White House as he is right now, Smith said at the Cato event. So they're going to have to deal with that. We are quite fine, actually. Trade negotiations between Mexico and the United States have launched, but Ottawa and Washington have not started official talks yet. That's a yes and no type statement. We keep on hearing that there's so much talk in between LeBlanc and Jameson Greer, the United States trade representative, behind the scenes, back channels, all that kind of stuff. So, if those are not official talks, I don't know what are, because, the U.S. trade representative is involved in them. They might not be. These are official talks, but all talk when it comes to this is official. Let's be honest. United States Trade Representative Jameson Greer has said there are, quote, pillars of the Continental Trade Pact that work well. He also said he'd be open to 2 separate bilateral agreements with Canada and Mexico. Canada and Mexico are not down for that. And pay attention, put a pin in the U.S. Trade Representative said there are pillars of the Continental Trade Pact that work well. Because in the interview with Hoekstra, you will see that there are some turns of phrase that make it clear what the United States position vis-a-vis Canada truly is, even though they're not saying it in blunt words. The Continental Trade Agreement has shielded Canada and Mexico from many of Trump's tariffs. The current global 10% U.S. duty does not apply to CUSMA-compliant goods. Canada's former chief negotiator, Steve Verheul, said the CUSMA tariff exemption shows the United States, quote, does attach a considerable amount of importance to the deal. And one of the concessions we did get, even though it hasn't been reported in the Canadian media as a concession and the Conservatives never recognize it as such, is when Donald Trump did sign an executive order stating that there would be exemptions for CUSMA-compliant trade, which then led Canada and Mexico to ensure that even more of their trade was CUSMA compliant, because for a lot of people, either the trade wasn't sufficient enough or the loss wasn't important enough for them to actually file the necessary paperwork. It seems that a lot more businesses have done that now. They also support from American industries, let's try that again. There's also support from American industries, public, and many Republican lawmakers, Verheul said at an event for Bank of Montreal clients Monday. A bipartisan group of more than 100 House lawmakers wrote a letter to Trump administration in December expressing support for the agreement. The largest challenge for Canada will be Trump's separate tariffs on industries like steel, aluminum, automobiles, and cabinetry, Verheul said. Quote, I don't think there's been anything close to a good deal on the table so far, he said. And there hasn't, which once again makes Pierre Poilievre's statements a little bit curious when he claims that he, with way fewer skills than our current prime minister has and way less knowledge of economics than our prime minister has, claims he would have already had a tariff-free deal by now. We have to remind you that the only tariff-free deal that was ever on the table from the United States side was agreeing to be annexed. So again, I'm not sure if Pyapolyev is trying to say that he would have been okay with us being annexed, but if he's claiming that he would have gotten that type of deal, I would have gotten a deal already that would have been tariff free, and that was the only one on the table. That's the only conclusion I can come to, is that he would have capitulated, unless he's claiming that he has some magical superpowers that are superior to all of Mark Carney's experience and knowledge and education. Conservatives love to weave stories. They are more storytellers than there are policy wonks, that's for sure. So maybe that is what Pierre was trying to get us to believe. But of course, that's just not serious. So, with all of that, and it kind of looks like the United States will probably. I'm not sure if the United States is going to come up with anything on July 1st saying that we want to keep talking about this, or we want to go into the 10-year annual sort of discussing until we get something right type thing. That's probably where he will end up going, because announcing he would want to pull out would probably be political suicide and would probably send the stock markets reeling, which he can't afford right now, as has been indicated by the complete capitulation he's made on Iran, because people were saying that the world was pretty much at 4 weeks left of oil and gas in terms of reserves and supplies to keep economies somewhat functioning. And therefore, the big hit probably would have come soon after that, particularly with bond yields. And the president, I guess, has at least enough of a survival instinct to not create that situation. So he's finding a way to spin this Iran deal in which the United States comes out of it with much less than it had before it started the war on Iran, and try to spin that as some type of win, while, of course, repeatedly threatening to still keep on bombing Iran. And now today they've announced, or yesterday they had announced, that they're going to have more talks. Apparently there was a deal, but apparently anyway, there was obviously going to be more talking, because they didn't even start touching on the nuclear stuff with the alleged deal. There's plenty of opportunities for this to blow up, right? Pardon the pun. That was unintentional, actually, and this time I'm just not that clever. But but yeah, um, there is nothing out there in the public sphere that gives us the sense that we need to rush to sign something. His situation is just getting worse and worse, and time is more on our side than it is on theirs, particularly if we do have a common front with Mexico. Um, Again, we had Trump just recently, I think it was yesterday, threatening that if there was any types of digital services tax of any kind that would affect U.S. companies, that Trump would respond with 100% tariffs in case there was any doubt remaining about who it is that he is working for and which particular special interest group he serves. The online platform barons, clearly, because there's absolutely no reason to be suggesting in public such a disproportionate measure as a 100% tariff, which is really stupid, because the United States citizens pay that. If someone was going to impose a very minuscule digital services tax of some kind, that 100% tariffs is a lot of firepower to throw to stand for just one sliver of the economy and one particular group of business owners. Gee, is it any wonder they were at the inauguration in the front row, tributes with tributes waiting to go, or tributes already having been delivered? They're getting for whatever it is they've invested in this presidency. They've got someone that's willing to stand in front of a camera and threaten 100% tariffs if they are minorly inconvenienced in any way, shape, or form by anyone at all. to be willing to claim that you're going to throw the full weight of the state behind that for very little gain, really, and for basically the privilege of punching yourself in the dick for all intents and purposes. Um, Somebody must have made him a very spectacular offer. I'm just going to say. So we have Vassy Kapelos and Pete Hoekstra coming on to do an interview with her. And you will see during this interview that he is starting again with the tone that would reflect the decision to engage on a charm offensive, like he has been doing for the past few weeks. And you will notice that Vassy Kapelos really came prepared for this interview. She dared to commit journalism. The ambassador was probably not ready for it. And you will see that there is a point in the interview where the ambassador's body language and tone does make a very clear and detectable shift. And we are, I won't say we're back to the old Pete, but he kind of gives up on the charm offensive right till the very end where he kind of tries to turn it on again. But he realized that he is dealing with someone who has come prepared and that his approach is not going to survive first contact. So he shifts. Let's just put it that way. So let's get into this. It's about a 15-minute interview. I'll stop it at certain sections, of course. But this is very, very good journalism, very, very good questioning. Wondering when I see stuff like this, I tell myself, okay, we know that they can do it. So why don't they do it when Pierre Poilievre is on screen and comes down? Why do they not do it when Melissa Lantsman comes? Why are they not this prepared and firmly skeptical as they push back? But this is A plus work here on the part of Vassy Kapelos. Almost no notes.
We'll start today with the still fraught CUSMA negotiations. At stake, the very survival of the trilateral free trade agreement. Earlier this week, we brought you part one of my exclusive broadcast interview with U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra. He made it clear with just days to go to the July 1st deadline, Canada and the U.S. are nowhere near a breakthrough. And despite the two sides making progress in October of last year, the ambassador claims Canada has yet to make another good offer. So what from the American perspective constitutes a good offer? That's where I started part two of my conversation with the ambassador.
Well, I mean, again, the offer in October was great. It was 3 or 4 million barrels of oil to the United States per year, more. A framework on a steel agreement that would have been good for the U.S., would have been good for Canada. Aluminum, same thing. Uranium, the same thing. Auto parts, the same thing. So I mean, a good deal for both countries is the deal that we both look at and say, you know what, there's a win in here for us. And Canada looks at it and says, you know what, there's a win in here for us as well.
So you think, do you still think it's possible for something to be arrived at eventually that is win-win? Because you will know as anyone else that there's a ton of analysis out there that says the president is not interested in win-win. He's interested in the Americans winning and the Canadians not. And many of his comments have been to that effect. We don't need Canada. We don't need anything they have to offer us. He said that on repeated occasions.
Yeah, the president's a phenomenal negotiator. All right. But
okay. The president is a phenomenal negotiator. We just saw what happened in Iran. You can't claim that at all. I mean, that's just, listen, I would have had a hard time keeping a straight face with that type of commentary. I did notice something, kids and cubs. I'm hoping that this is the correct clip because it's not starting like I thought it would. Um, the version I saw of this, I'm very surprised that it's not the same thing because I went into my history to grab it. The interview didn't start midway. The interview had started from the beginning of it. So I'm a little confused that I somehow have a different clip, this one. Um, so let me see if I have uh, the right one because this is not what I was expecting to see. Uh, yep, okay, it is saying that that is the same one. So I don't know if there was an edit there, but we'll keep on going with it. And if there's anything I missed, I'll hopefully go and find the original. Because with this, sadly, um, it's not showing the first part that shows him coming in a whole lot more smooth and with the charm offensive. I mean, you're seeing it a little bit there, right? Talking about, you know, trying to make it seem that there's some room in there to do something in the trade negotiation that would be good for Canada. Now, when we hear good for Canada, right, we assume that we went into a trade negotiation, they gave a little, we gave a little, and ultimately both of us are better off. But the United States version of what's good for Canada is not necessarily the same as our version of what's good for Canada. The United States seems to be taking an approach that if it can make a deal with us for things that it wants, that necessarily will be good for Canada. That has not proven. That has far from been proven as being a reality that we can expect. So let's go back.
If you read his book, The Art of the Deal, the only way you get to a deal is if both sides see a win in what has been agreed to. And yes, the president negotiates on our behalf. He's negotiating for Americans. But you know what? So is Mark Carney. Mark Carney is not negotiating, obviously, for Americans, but he is negotiating for the best interest of Canada. And there are all kinds of things that, we could be working together on.
Okay, again, right? We could be working together on all kinds of things, right? This is still the soft sell. You can see it in his voice, right? He's not as aggressive as he usually is and that type of stuff. But this is going to shift. You'll see.
And moving forward on critical minerals, additional uranium enrichment. Both countries have made a huge commitment to nuclear power. We saw the announcement here this week about that. The United States is doing the same kind of commitment. So we have all kinds of things that are, that the table's almost set for immediate investment and growth and jobs and prosperity in a whole series of areas without even looking out at where else can we cooperate. There's been talk about the Arctic. We're waiting, okay, on this in terms of, does Canada want to do the Arctic by itself, defend the Arctic? There have been statements to that effect.
Can you understand why? I think, a number of years ago, what you're laying out would have made perfect sense to Canadians, right? Deepening integration in the areas that matter most, particularly from a continental perspective. And in fact, that's what has occurred over so many years. But in the course of the last, year and a half, the hesitation that you are describing is likely the genesis of, comments and actions by the administration and by the president himself. Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. Canada is totally dependent on the United States. Without us, Canada can't make it. If we stop buying their products, Canada would cease to exist as a country. If someone spoke to the United States that way, would you be advocating for deeper integration? Or would you too have some hesitance.
Okay, did you see his face during that exchange? Did you see his face shift on all the close-ups on him while she was talking to him? While she came and delivered all the statements that she had researched and prepared, all the things that the United States has said over the past while. And that's not all of them, that's just a sampling. And seems to be expressing skepticism. Because Hoekstra is there talking about potential win-win when we know Donald Trump does not do win-win. Vassy Kapelos even suggested it rather than stating it as a fact, which Pete Hoekstra turned around and said, well, if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, Donald Trump hasn't even read his own book, The Art of the Deal. Right? This question is the first one that he got in the interview, because there was the whole first part that seems to start pushing back. The elbows are coming up a little bit here. And you could see his face turn. Exactly. You saw it, right? You saw it, Kit Saucy go right there. He was a little taken aback. Love it when the face shows their shock. Right? He even had a little, like, his eyes wide open and was like, what's going on here? type look. So, let's see how Mr. Hoekstra handles this.
We would take a look at our business community, where we're doing well. We wouldn't go to our largest trading partner and say there's a rupture, and we're actually going to be looking somewhere else.
Oops. Did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? Pulling back. We're not going to go telling our business partners that there's a rupture. Again, history starts for him at the moment we said that, or at the moment that we pulled booze off the shelf. But nothing that came before, or nothing that could have caused that, or could have been, that could have, as the Prime Minister would say, could have catalyzed that response from us, gets factored into the equation. Right? He's a little miffed now. Now the charm offensive has turned off. Right? Now we're the big bad mean Canada, who claimed that there was a rupture when they threatened that they wanted to annex us. If that's not a rupture, I don't know what the hell is. But all right, let's see what happens now. Hope you got your popcorn, because this is some good stuff.
You wouldn't do that if someone expressed to the United States. Pardon me, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. We would take a look at that, and we'd say, okay, let's see exactly what we can develop, what kind of agreements we can develop. And obviously we would take a look at going to alternative sources. But Canadians are smart people, okay? You have smart business people. They have been looking at diversification for years and decades. This is not a brilliant new idea that says, wow, let's sell to Europe, let's sell to Asia, okay? That's not a great insight.
Okay, so what's going on here, right? So we would have to look at that, and maybe we would have to look at other partners, which was exactly what we did when the United States determined and announced itself as no longer a reliable trade partner. We decided that we would go other ways and look at different partners, which did not make the United States happy, right? Because this is a very abusive relationship. This is a, if we can't have you, no one else can have you type relationship in the eyes of the United States. Here. And of course, right, let me finish, because she was going to come back and he wasn't ready for it. But then stutter and stammer, because he needed to find something to say to continue. So the only purpose of that was to break her roll because she was going on a roll here, and this to basically diminish the Canadians' position, diminish our trust in the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister isn't some brilliant mind. Everybody can think about going to trade with someone else if they don't like what the deal is with someone. So we're in the diminishing part now, right? Then maybe followed by some convincing us, trying to convince us that it's a stupid idea anyway, because it'll never really work. Let's see if that's where he goes.
What they found, and I've spent a lot of time with your business community, they have found that doing business in Europe is not easy. It is hard, okay? The French like to buy from the Germans, they like to buy from the Dutch, and they like to buy from the Spaniards and all those types of things. You know, maybe they would like to buy some Canadian, but it's not their first place where they go. So diversification, I mean, this is for your economists to figure out how fast it can happen and those types of things. But I think it's hard, but I would never take your biggest customer. We would never have taken our biggest customer and just thrown them under the bus and say, sorry, we're out of here.
But do you understand how that's exactly how it felt to Canadians? And I know you push back against these, but we were your biggest customer,
Let's
right?
talk about...
See, once again, you've noticed that he made a totally absurd statement. We would never throw our biggest customer under the bus. The United States' two biggest customers are China and Canada. We were the only two countries who responded with counter tariffs. Because of the size of the trade that we did, we had the clout to be able to do it and have some type of impact. You don't have anything we need. Wouldn't it be great if you just ceased being a country and just were assumed within the United States? But no, they didn't come for us. And then when getting the pushback, once again, cutting her off in the question, talking over her so that even that idea doesn't even get to be recorded. And then he can continue trying to bulldoze. And he did go out and say, trade with other people is hard. I mean, that's for your economists to figure out. He's almost passive aggressive like a Canadian in that one. But it's hard. Yeah, but Mr. Hoekstra, the part you forgot is, as hard as it is it now harder than trade with the United States or not? Because trade with the United States is also hard. And you've made it harder. And if you've made it harder, then you assess trade is with Europe or other nations. Then basically you're saying it is in our interest to choose the easier path. And that's no longer you. As hard as the other path may be, if it is easier than the path of dealing with you. And I would say these days, sitting down and deciding that we are going to pull out our entire fingernails and toenails one by one would be easier than trying to negotiate a deal with you. If you're advising us that our best strategy is to negotiate with people with whom it's going to be easier, right now that's Europe and Asia and the rest of the world. So thanks for the advice, but we're already doing that. Buddy. He's starting to fall apart a little bit here. All right. Let's get back to this and see how it is that Ms. Kapelos keeps pushing back in ways that he would not, probably did not expect coming to sit down from this interview.
Business, okay? How are you going to create jobs and prosperity for your people? We do business with people that don't say the nicest things about America, all right? And, we do business, the amazing thing is a lot of Canadian business are still looking at expanding into the U.S. You know what? There's a lot of American businesses that would love to do business in Canada, even though you ban our products. You know, we can't bid on procurement and those types of things.
I have questioned many federal ministers about the efforts to diversify, the challenges previously, and the challenges that presents right now. But you framed the initial comment there around, taking issue with the fact that it's being described as a rupture. But you want us to refer to the comments from the president, for example, or the way in which he's described this country as simply noise. I'm presenting to you just like when you're wondering why there might be some hesitation not to further integration or make that sales pitch. In the way you describe it, that perhaps is part of it, that part of the responsibility and the onus, the burden of that lies not just with Canada, but specifically with the president who decided to take aim at your close friend and neighbor.
Okay. Again, you will notice his body language, right? Sitting there, stunned, rejecting with his head. No, 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 no. Some very, very basic truth. There is no acceptance of any responsibility for what it is that they have brought to the potluck, right? They were supposed to bring a chocolate pudding pie and they brought a poop pie to the potluck and expected us to take a bite. In fact, they wanted us to have 2 slices. And it's like, we just put our nose to it and goes, no, that's poop pie. We ain't having that. But we brought you a gift. Why would you take a bite of our lovely gift? Because it's a poop pie. You eat a bite of it first. Oh, no, 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 no. We made it for you. Yeah. That's okay. We'll pass. Our doctor put us on a low poop calorie diet. We're looking to get into après-ski shape. So, sorry. We'll pass. Thank you for your generous gift. But we're all full up on poop pie. Thank you. Exactly, Katsasi. Look at his face. He's looking at her like he can't believe the journalist knows what she is talking about. And you will notice as well that when Vassy Kapelos cut into his narrative this time, right? He didn't offer a no or keep talking because he was just stalling for time and running out the clock. He was just rambling on with a whole bunch of stuff there that was pretty much irrelevant. I'm just going to we've got hurt fifis because you don't think that anything that is good for us is also good for you. So, Vassy Kapelos claims here that you took aim at us. The United States took aim at us here. And shouldn't there be... why is there no self-awareness on your part that the dishes that you bring to the potluck could potentially be the thing that have made the potluck turn sour? Right? The sour dish that you brought might be the thing that is causing the problem. There's absolutely no recognition here on the part of the United States. None whatsoever. So let's go back to the question that Vassy Kapelos asked, because we'll replay it, and then see how Mr. Hoekstra responds to it, because there's no hesitation. He immediately comes in. So I want to show it so that you get the dynamic here.
many federal ministers about the efforts to diversify, the challenges previously, and the challenges that presents right now. But you framed the initial comment there around, taking issue with the fact that it's being described as a rupture. But you want us to refer to the comments from the president, for example, or the way in which he's described this country as simply noise. I'm presenting to you just like when you're wondering why there may be some hesitation not to further integration or make that sales pitch. In the way you describe it, that perhaps is part of it, that part of the responsibility and the onus, the burden of that lies not just with Canada, but specifically with the president who decided to take aim at your close friend and neighbor.
We did not take aim at Canada.
Those statements are not taking aim, with all due respect, Ambassador.
Take a look at your economic, we put tariffs on every country in the world. We did not take aim at Canada. We took a policy that we were implementing on a global basis that we believed we had to put in place to keep America strong and prosperous. So, there were only two countries that responded in a strongly negative way. Okay? The rest of the world, we've negotiated trade agreements, we've worked on frameworks and those types of things. We did not take aim at Canada.
Really? And I ask with great respect, because yes, you did apply tariffs to other countries, but you initially applied 232 fentanyl-associated tariffs to Canada. And wherein the president, did not refer to every other country in the way that, as I cataloged, he has referred to Canada. I understand that you're upset with the response that Canada made.
I'm not upset. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, you don't view the response from Canada positively. But from where I sit, it seems like you're frustrated with the idea that when Canada got punched, they didn't just lay there.
Okay. That silence spoke volumes. That silence after that spoke volumes. We applied tariffs to every country in the world. Yeah, eventually. But you started out with us. And you started out with the claim that we were somehow some den of fentanyl. That was not accepting its responsibilities for it crossing over to your side of the border when, one, hardly any of the fentanyl, and any is too much given how powerful it is, agreed, we can concede that. And how deadly it is, we can concede that. But it's also your job as a country to control what enters across your own border, not ours. And certainly the amounts that we're crossing, especially when you consider all the ways that fentanyl enters the United States, we're certainly not deserving of Canada being singled out before any other place in the world. And then when you add that to all the comments, the ones that Vassy Kapelos came prepared with a whole list that specifically targeted us, that weren't said about any other place with the possible exception of Greenland, Cuba, and Venezuela. Given the United States posture with regard to those three. Don't come and tell me that you didn't take aim at us. Don't come and tell me you didn't single us out when Donald Trump went to speak at Davos after Mark Carney delivered his speech. Canada's not very grateful. Canada lives because of the United States. Prime Minister Mark, you need to be more grateful. No, that wasn't us being singled out for special treatment. That wasn't the United States holding us up to the rest of the world to say, hey, if we're willing to do this to one of our top two largest trading partners and neighbor, with whom things are absolutely great, a country that pretty much everyone else likes, then imagine what we can do to you. Right? That's the message. That's one of the reasons why they keep punching us right in the face. But no, we didn't do that. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And that first answer stopped, and there was a pause. And Vassy Kapelos turned around and said, "Really?" With all due respect, which is not much. She didn't say that part. But really? And then she basically said, it seems that, you know, you're opposed. I'm not unopposed. I'm not opposed. It's not me personally. No, okay, fine. She was able to switch it and reframe it. You don't approve. You're not mad at Canada's position. Okay, fine. The position you don't approve of. But it seems, and then she comes back, okay, not that you're mad, but that you're frustrated. That once you decided to punch us in the face, we just wouldn't stay down. Remember Scott Bessent said, now we're going to be doing this stuff. Don't react. Don't react. Let us just climb all on top of you and have our way with you. Because that's not atypical of the current president of the United States. Right? Interesting to mention that on the day after the Supreme Court of the United States decided not to hear Trump's appeal of the E. Jean Carroll case, it seems that even the justices of the Supreme Court believe that the president of the United States is indeed a sexual predator. Oops. But yes, we dared to not stay down when they punched us in the face. And you noticed there where he was like, doesn't have something to say for a certain number of seconds. So let's just go back a little bit. Let's go back to that really moment. That's just fantastic.
Canada.
Really? And I ask with great respect, because yes, you did apply tariffs to other countries, but you initially applied 232 fentanyl-associated tariffs to Canada. And wherein the president, did not refer to every other country in the way that, as I cataloged, he has referred to Canada. I understand that you're upset with the response that Canada made.
I'm not upset. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, you don't view the response from Canada positively, but from where I sit, it seems like you're frustrated with the idea that when Canada got punched, they didn't just lay there.
That, Canada can have whatever response it wants. Okay, we are willing to.
Clearly, that's not true. Canada can have whatever response it wants. Clearly, that's not true, because if we could have whatever response we wanted, you'd go, okay, well, that's your response. Here's how we'll deal. But that's not what's happening here, right? He's balking like a 3-year-old. The dude is balking like a 3-year-old. So, Canada can have whatever response it wants.
Lay there.
That, Canada can have whatever response it wants. Okay, we are willing to do business with Canada. The president has made that clear. He embraced the agreement back in October for 5 huge sectors of this economy, saying we were willing to invest, we were willing to cooperate and create a framework that we thought would be good for America and we thought would be good for Canada, and that we would then take that and expand it to other sectors of a total agreement. And, but if Canada wants to be hesitant, they can do that. But the other message that we send is very positive. We recognize the needs we have. Okay, we need critical minerals. We've indicated to Canada, we think you're very much a natural partner. You're close by, you have lots of these, but if you don't want to sign an agreement with us, we understand. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop. Okay, so we go to Australia, we go to Africa, we go to the Philippines, lots of other countries to meet our needs, even though we think in many ways Canada would be the preferred partner. Same thing on oil. We would love to do more business with Alberta and the oil producing provinces, and because we have the infrastructure. We know how to do business with the Canadian businesses that are on the north side of the border. We know how to build pipelines. We know how to get oil from Alberta down to Houston, okay? That infrastructure's in place. But if Canada says, no, we don't want a pipeline and we don't want any more integration with the U.S. on oil, it's kind of like, okay, then we'll have to look somewhere else because we are going to be energy dominant.
They're not saying that right now, though, right?
Who's that?
Like anybody in the federal government or provincially that is in an oil-producing province or the prime minister. I mean, they talk about the prospect of the other version of Keystone. We've seen presidential permits issued on that side of the border, work being done on this side of the border. You even denoted a few weeks ago a bit of a shift in tone from the prime minister and other politicians. Does that have the potential to make any difference moving forward?
Okay. Before we get into that, again, did you hear specifically what the ambassador said here? There were 5 areas where the United States thought they could build with Canada. The president who says Canada has nothing we need says we've accepted there are things that we need. We need your critical minerals, we need your oil, we need your aluminum, we need all that type of stuff. And we wanted to isolate those 5 things that we need from you, even though we say that there's nothing we need from you and say that we want to annex you and are threatening to do it by some form of economic coercion, where we're going to just destabilize and upend your economy in order, as the Prime Minister said, to break you in order to be able to own you. We have these 5 sectors. We're ready to make a deal on these 5 sectors of things we need. And once we get that, then try to expand the deal to see if it could apply to other areas. The United States proposal is negotiate with us first on all the things we need. And once we are satisfied that you have given us enough, then let's see about the things, all the other things that are not things that we expressly need, and maybe the things that you need. And maybe, perhaps, somehow, someday, eventually, maybe we'll come to some type of agreement that maybe, somehow, potentially might benefit you. But concede everything to us that we want in the areas we feel will advantage us. And then we'll see if those talks can be expanded to all those other things that may be important to you. Because we have such a wonderful reputation established as being the type of person that once we get what we want from someone, is then amenable to giving something back rather than taking more or continuing to destabilize a place, as we've seen with their deal allegedly with Europe. The United States position is, before we talk about anything that's important to you, give us everything that we need on the things that are important to us. We can't believe that you don't want to do this deal with us on critical minerals. It would be so good for you. Arts, culture, digital services, all that kind of procurement. We'll talk about that kind of stuff later, maybe. Yeah. That's literally the United States. No wonder we haven't signed a deal yet. Give us everything we want on the stuff that is important to us, and maybe, perhaps, we'll see if there's something we can do for you on other stuff. from an administration that has threatened us and has proven itself to be totally and completely unreliable. Yeah, wow. Let me rush to the table to sign me off to get a slice of that, right? Mark Carney, PhD in economics, governor of 2 central banks, intimate understanding of how the bond market works, risk manager by trade. Yeah, that's the type of offer. He's gonna show up belly down, ass up to sign while kissing feet and being grateful for what we're getting. It's like these Americans have never met a Canadian, at least a Canadian that's not a Polyev conservative. I'm serious. This guy this guy thinks that this is an attractive proposition. Ah, unbelievable. All right. So, Vassy Kapelos, uh, basically asking, right, that whether or not, because part of this change in the charm offensive came when the prime minister went to the Economic Club of New York and made that speech stating that Canada strong, not Canada, Canada strong. So Canada that becomes the type of Canada that the unit that the prime minister has presented to us as a vision for where we need to go will make America great again. Right? Pete Hoekstra heard Canada will make great America great again. Forgot the strong part. Decided not to hear the strong part and said, "Wow, this could be, the charm offensive came after that. Wow, that's a great thing. With that's the type of framing that we like to hear. Canada will make America great again. Yeah, that's what we like to hear. Mm-mm. Canada strong, buddy." But she's pointing that and says, you've said that you've noticed a change in tone from Canada. Not so much a change of tone, just more of us trying to make it clear to the United States that if we're going to do the things that Pete Hoekstra is saying here, right? So you don't want to be our natural partner on critical minerals. Well, then I guess we've got to keep going. We'll get them from somewhere else. Yes, just like if we've got nothing you need, if you don't need our aluminum, our critical trade minerals, our fertilizers, our steel, our oil, our gas, we too are able to go and find people who would like to take our stuff because we too are not going to stop. There's this American exceptionalism thing with this guy that he believes that these laws of economic gravity, of contractual gravity, don't apply to the United States. Or whatever business decision that the United States can make for itself is a business decision that other countries can make for themselves too. Now, of course, we have to make it under the threat of coercion from the United States and choose to be brave enough to do it anyway. About the only country the United States fears that way is China. But hence the difference in talk between the United States administration when it comes to Canada and when it comes to China. When it talks smack about China, it talks smack about China in generalized terms, but not in its negotiations with China, though, right? When Donald Trump shows up to the table to sit across Xi, it's all compliments and sunshine being blown up his butt. When we show up, it's, you don't have anything we need. Here's the deal that we have for you. Take it and be grateful. Because while we do have some clout, we definitely don't have China's clout. And overall, on a one-on-one fight, the United States would probably win. Even though we would make their lives very, 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 very difficult. if we did cut off the fertilizer and the oil and the aluminium and the steel and the critical minerals. The United States would probably be able to get out of it eventually. But the rest of the world also sees the United States, how it's negotiated itself into a corner, negotiated itself into less with Iran. So there are more and more people, more and more nations out there. One of the reasons more and more of the nations out there are sort of adhering to this idea that there could be a coalition of middle powers is because the United States, even though it still has hegemon status, it is wielding it in such a sloppy, disorganized, and unstrategic way that whatever it is their ambitions are, they just don't have the whatever it is needed, the self-control, the self-restraint, the being tethered to reality to actually make it happen and make it happen in a way that will be ultimately advantageous for them. They might do a lot of damage to a lot of people along the way, and they don't seem to care much about that. But they are not bettering their situation, so if we can hold out longer than they can, eventually we will be in an more advantageous situation, and might have to give up much less, or might even be able to make a few gains. Meanwhile, we keep on signing contracts. The time that the United States is wasting with all this posing and posturing just buys us more time to make those tough trade deals with other nations. And if we're doing stuff like we did with India on uranium, where we are signing contracts for several years in advance, if we do that for all of those materials, the United States, if it keeps on doing that, is going to wake up one day and is going to absolutely have to need to find partners elsewhere because our supply will be spoken for. And given how warm and fuzzy and cuddly the United States has been the last recent while, I'm sure that there will be people just lining up to make their lives better. Again, and should ever our prime minister decide to place a strategic phone call to both Germany and Japan and say, let's just mess with these arseholes, sell some US debt, do a couple things in the bond market. We just saw how well the United States reacted when its 30-year bond yield crossed 5%. What was going on with Iran? Boy, did they ever backtrack when it looked like it was, when it crossed 5.1 and was going full steam ahead towards 5.5, which has been deemed by the world markets as being the danger zone. The United States sure pulled back fast, didn't it? A couple of nations can get together and make the United States' life very difficult. And if they have some minimally competent people working behind the scenes, they know that. They're very painfully aware of that. So we know going into this that there's a certain amount of this bluster that is indeed just noise. And yes, that Donald Trump might follow through on a few of them to cause us more pain. But we are not moved to panic. We were moved to panic at the beginning when we thought that tariffs would come and that everything Kuzma would be upended. But when we realized at some point think somebody mentioned that the potential damage to our economy was about 2.8% less GDP growth over a certain period of time than what was expected. There are things we can do to shore that up. That's 2.8 if we don't do anything to respond. If we did things to respond, that would, knock that down from 2.8 to 1.6. Yeah, 1.6 decline is not great, but it's tolerable. It certainly doesn't break us. And if we're in that time regrouping in such a way as to compensate for that eventually, yeah, it would take time. It would take a long time. But it is far from impossible. And we happen to have the people at the helm at the time who know how to make this happen. So a lot of these, I'm not saying are empty threats from the United States, but they give us a clear vision, right? Work with us on the things that are important to us, and maybe then we'll see if there's something in it for you, other than the fact that you got a contract with us on those 5 big things. And you can bet that those contracts probably will be each individually designed to not be as advantageous to us as they could be, at least from the United States perspective. We're supposed to be just grateful that the United States wants to do business with us, and we're supposed to consider that that is good for us. And that's where the thinking stops on the United States part. Fortunately, we tend to think a little deeper and a little harder and a little more. All right, let's get back.
Weeks ago, a bit of a shift in tone from the Prime Minister and other politicians. Does that have the potential to make any difference moving forward?
If it's consistent. Okay, if it's consistent.
Do you observe it to be so far?
Well, I mean, I think there was a very good response to the Prime Minister's speech in New York.
Okay, did you notice that threat? If it's consistent from a country that deals, that lives, that soaks in intentional inconsistency, we need to be consistent. So long as we keep on talking, in Hoekstra's estimation, about Canada wanting to make America great again. Not Canada strong, Canada. And if we're consistent about that, well then, yeah, maybe. The arrogance. Get hyper T there. Hoekstra sounds pretty rough. Yeah, we've heard him coughing and we saw him wiping his nose once or twice, so probably he has some type of cold or something. But yeah, if we are consistent, do you observe it to be so far? Well, I mean, I think there was a very good response to the Prime Minister's speech in New York. The one where Pete Hoekstra didn't hear the strong part when he said Canada strong will make America great again. Let's continue with the answer.
His most recent comments in France raise questions again. There's going to be a new world order. It's going to come out of Europe, and Canada wants to be a part of it. It's kind of like, okay.
Can't that just be noise? If we're supposed to make Donald Trump noise, can't that just be noise?
It's noise, and we have to work through the noise, but we haven't come back and said, okay, yeah, we're not going to do business with Canada. We're still saying,
They literally walked away from the table. They literally walked away from the table when Donald Trump rage quit the negotiations because of a TV ad that he was fine with 4 days before. He decided it was not okay and raged quit on it. They've literally ghosted us on official talks since October. And we are the ones who are being framed here as being inconsistent. But we haven't come back and said, okay, yeah, we're not going to do business with Canada. You literally walked away from the table with a hissy fit. If what the United States is saying we're supposed to take as noise, why can't they take that as noise? Well, we have to work through the noise. Yeah, and that's what we're doing too, isn't it? But we haven't come back and said we don't want to do business with Canada. No, you just up and left the table. And the table we're still sitting at, by the way, because we haven't left. Our attitude was, okay, fine. If you need to, if you need to, your fifis are hurting, you need to go walk it off. That's fine. We'll sit here and wait. When you're ready to come back, you can come back. We'll be here. So let's go back. Rewinded it a little bit.
It's noise, and we have to work through the noise, but we haven't come back and said, okay, yeah, we're not going to do business with Canada. We're still saying, we are willing to do business with Canada. We want to do business with Canada. It could be noise. And then part of my job is to interpret it and present it back to the president and say, they really do want to do business with us. But at the same time, there are questions that are raised in terms of do they? There was just a defense contract that U.S. companies couldn't even bid on. It's kind of like, okay, that's a problem.
I'm glad you brought that up, if you don't mind, Ambassador, because I did want to ask about the F-35s. You rightly pointed out last time we met, in our first interview, I
try to do everything rightfully, even though I'm wrong so often.
No. You try around NORAD, right? And whether or not, we're still, it's funny because that was almost a year ago, and we're still talking about whether or not Canada will proceed with the F-35s. That it's been well over a year that review has been underway. There's some reporting now that they'll still proceed with the order, but add an order for the Gripens. How does the U.S. view that? And is NORAD in jeopardy with this decision?
The one decision will not kill NORAD, okay? What we look at is a whole series of decisions that say, if you buy fighters that don't integrate with the latest technology and the best airplane in the world, they don't really count as full airplanes. They're capable and all that, but if they don't link to an F-35, that's a problem. If you buy surveillance or spy planes that don't integrate with NORAD or the U.S., okay, that becomes an issue. If you say you want to protect the Arctic by yourselves, okay, that says, well, okay, then are we changing the boundaries and the scope of the work that NORAD? Those are things that we have, that you work through with discussions and those kinds of things.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. I've taken enough of your time. Thank you, Ambassador. A pleasure. I appreciate you making the time for it.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right.
We begin with that looming milestone for Canada.
There we go. Sorry about that. So, again, in that you will notice that he said, what Canada said, what Mark Carney said in New York, that made us feel good. But then he went to Europe and said, something about a new world order, and it's coming from Europe. Then we have that's a problem for us. You put out a contract and didn't let U.S. bid on it. That's a problem for us. You're trying to decimate our entire auto industry. You didn't get to bid on one contract. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got nothing for you. I come here and I try to do everything right. Victim. No, you don't try to do everything right. No, you don't. If you did that, you wouldn't have been booted out of the Netherlands when you were assigned ambassador there. You don't try to do everything right. Don't try to make us believe that you're some type of victim here, because you got asked some tough questions. And then we get to the NORAD stuff. Well, if we want to buy planes that are not to be integrated into the U.S. system, that's an issue. If you choose you want to defend the North by yourself, because the United States, particularly when it comes to the waterways in the Northwest Passage, definitely wants it to be considered international waters rather than Canadian waters. And if it were Canadian waters, would certainly want a NORAD equivalent for maritime things. And we're not necessarily convinced that that's a good thing. That's one of the reasons we went and got that over the horizon radar thing. Because Canada now does not have confidence in the United States that if something is incoming and the phone call first goes to Washington, D.C., that the current administration won't say, oh, well, we can't let it be exploded. We can't disarm this over New York City. But if it happens over Toronto, that's a sacrifice we are willing to make. The Canadian government wants that first phone call to come to Canada now. Gee, I wonder why. Wonder what could have happened from the United States that would make us decide that maybe it's in our best interest to not let Washington, D.C. be the first to pick up that call. Yeah, damn straight we want to take care of it ourselves now. With probably help of the other Nordics. Damn straight we want to take care of it now. You threatened to freaking annex us. What did you think would happen? Again, in all the years that we have had diplomatic relations with the United States, how this current administration could have come to believe that they would treat us the way that they have treated us, that we would just say, bend over and say, yeah, please, may I have some more? Have you met us over the last between 150 and 60 years? Like once? Because you don't know us very well, it would appear. But yeah, the three threats. You come to the table with concessions ready for us on the 5 things that we need from you, even though we're telling the world we don't need anything from you. And then we'll see if you get anything. Things will go well if you're consistent, even in the face of our inconsistency by design. And should you make any military or trade decisions for yourself that do not necessarily involve us, well, that's going to be a problem. Particularly if they are decisions that we can't integrate into the plans we already have for you. That's going to be a problem. We were threatened 3 times in that interview. And you saw his posture and his demeanor change. After Vassy Kapelos did the really? And then pushed back and it said that it seems that your frustration stems from the fact that we didn't stay down when you punched us. Look, we did this. We want that. We want this. We want that. No, no, no. The tone, the body language, everything, the delivery, everything changed. And at the end, tried to end it with some of offensive charm again. Yeah, that's an interview that did not go well for him. That's an interview that did not go well for him at all. That's an interview that did not make him any friends. Great journalism by Vassy Kapelos. Absolutely great journalism by Vassy Kapelos there. Came prepared, had the responses, knew what his standard go-to response was, had pre-rebutted it in her preparation. I know he's going to say we took aim at everyone because he's been saying that. Highlighted the fentanyl ones, the fentanyl terrorists that first hit us. Right? We never took aim at you. Oh, yeah? Here are all the quotes. He wasn't ready. He was not ready. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Since we have a little time here, let's do some upkeep. According to Kate McKenna and Catherine Cullen, there's some news from the conservative side. It seems that Papaliev is set to shuffle his opposition critics. I'm not sure if he's already making some announcements because I'm seeing some things here in the chat that are talking about certain things like Aaron Gunn getting a more prominent position and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's going on right now and people are making the notes, but this is the preview article for this. It says, Conservative leader Papaliev is set to announce a shuffling of his critics' role and front bench, according to conservative sources, as he looks to adapt his messaging to Prime Minister Mark Carney's majority government. The shuffle comes almost 3 months after opposition MPs with critics' roles, which the party prefers to call shadow cabinet, received a letter from the leader's office asking them to provide examples of the work they've done and whether they're interested in remaining in their positions. The letter that provoked Marilyn Gladue to leave the party because she found it so insulting. And maybe a letter that provoked Cathy Wagenthal, to decide that she wasn't going to complete her term as she said she would originally, when she claimed that her fourth go-round as an MP would be her last. Sources say some MPs have received calls about either keeping or changing their role. It's not clear at this point whether the entire critic roster has been notified. CBC News is not identifying the sources because they are not authorized to speak publicly about internal matters, yet they are speaking anyway. Unlike federal cabinet positions, the critic roles don't come with pay bumps, but the roles are coveted because they typically lead to more time in question period grilling liberal counterparts and more media appearances and signify seniority and trust from the leader. The current shadow cabinet has 73 members, the party of allegedly small government, representing more than half of the conservative caucus. Well, when you perform so poorly in an election where you lose your own seat and lose an election, which in the public opinion polls you were leading by 20-something points, you probably have to hand out many more goodies than you had originally planned, especially if you want to keep your job. A shift in the lineup will signal the kind of tone Polyev wants his party to embody. Sources say his new critics could include more MPs elected in 2025. It also comes after 4 conservative MPs crossed the floor to the Liberal Party since Carney's general election win. Given that the current mood within the conservative movement in Canada seems to be towards purity testing, I'm going to guess that if there are any changes, there are going to be changes to have a lineup that more reflects his charming, charismatic personality and super conciliatory approach to doing politics. One MP expected to change roles is Wellington Halton Hills North MP Michael Chong. He has long held the Foreign Affairs critics role, but a source confirms he will be taking on a new set of responsibilities, some of them at finance, it is rumored here. Chong traveled last month to Taiwan in defiance of warnings from Chinese authorities. In 2023, Canada expelled a Chinese diplomat in 2023 for targeting Chong's family. Conservative sources suggest several other key portfolios involving economic issues could also be up for a change. Poilievre's team is making their move before Carney shuffles his own cabinet. That move has been long awaited on Parliament Hill, but the prospect of a series of by-elections this summer could give the Prime Minister fresh faces to consider. The Conservative shuffle is expected to be announced sometime this week. And considering that this Conservative shuffle is happening prior to the federal one, responding to Mark Carney as it is now, not as it will be post-shuffle, indicates probably a certain amount of desperation or panic within the Conservative, allegedly shadow cabinet, more like critics' portfolio. Right? We have Kit Uncover here. That is, I'm guessing that things have been announced. Chong, a veteran MP who served as the Conservative Foreign Affairs critic for the last 6 years, replaces Jasraj Halan in finance as the Alberta MP moves to the National Revenue File. So Jasraj Halan clearly did not perform well, because revenue is where you send people you don't want to have any more TV time. So basically, Pierre Poilievre conceding that the person in the last election who would have been his choice to be finance minister was not the best choice. BC MP Aaron Gunn is taking over the Ethics and Government Accountability critic role. Okay. Sure. That's going to work well for you Conservatives. From Ontario MP Michael Barrett, a very, very, very prolific liar and fabulist who moves on to Veterans Affairs. So again, looks like Michael Barrett did not perform very well in that and is getting demoted. The problem is that Pierre Poilievre replaced Michael Barrett with someone who has fewer skills and much less diplomacy. He's not going to do better. Aaron Gunn is going to raise more money for the party, pressing the outrage button as the Ethics and Government Accountability critic, but he certainly won't do a better job at being effective than Michael Barrett has. That is for sure. Kit Linda also got a good laugh. Aaron Gunn heading up ethics is laughably hypocritical. And then, yes, Tavi G, did everyone see Jamil's response to seeing Prime Minister Mark Carney at the Toronto Pride Parade? He is big angry. Yes, indeed, he is big angry. Prime Minister went to Pride. And this, again, makes me happy because Justin Trudeau was the first Prime Minister who actually was a sitting Prime Minister who went to Pride. The Prime Minister doing so definitely helps us, our community, particularly at a time when, well, there's a lot of animosity against our community. That is absolutely for sure. And there is some interview here a little bit. He was interviewed by, I think it is CP24. So let's show a little bit of that here. Let's replace that with the proper screen because that would probably be helpful. There we have it.
We are live on CP24.
Live on CP24. I can't believe it. Didn't we just meet?
Prime Minister Mark Carney, what's it like to be walking in the parade right now?
We're just getting going. There's a lot of energy. It's thrilled. I'm here with the mayor, here with Kojo, who's done an amazing job organizing this and leading the Pride community here in Toronto. It's great. And we're just getting going.
This isn't the only big event happening for Canada today.
There is other things happening for Canada. That's absolutely right. Big event in Los Angeles. And, I'm sure the team's just about to, they're doing their stretching now. They're going to be on the pitch in probably about 20 minutes, warming up. Alphonse Alfonso Davis will be warming up because he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to start, but he's going to play. Look, it's a big match. I think I told you I spoke to the South African president yesterday, President Ramaphosa. You know, I told him he's going to be supporting Canada after today.
Any bets between the two of you?
No bets, just honor, just a pact that we would support each other. Bafana is it's a great side. They've got a lot of spirit, but we're gonna take it. Hey!
Thanks so much for that. Okay, we also connected with Mayor Olivia Chow a little bit earlier on, and of course the executive director of Pride Toronto, who are here leading the route, and they're having interaction with the crowd. Of course, this is kind of the madness that we're experiencing throughout the route today. Big crowds turning out. You know, we were hearing from Kojo Modesta earlier that he's expecting some 1.7 million people to be along this route. Of course, this is just such a mainstay tradition in Toronto, bringing the community together like this, bringing people from around the world. We were just chatting with people who made their way here from Chicago a little earlier on, saying that this is the warmest welcome they've had at a Pride event, and they've been to many over the years, and they just say that Toronto has really rolled out the red carpet for them. Do you expect to chat with them a little bit later on this route?
All right. So the Prime Minister there goes, talking about the World Cup as well. Of course, very important. We'll touch on that a little bit before we go. But yeah, marching in Pride, having a good time, got drenched by water soakers. There are some people expressing some concern about that because, in this day and age where people seem to want to take it upon themselves to do some vigilante stuff, that perhaps the Prime Minister should not have allowed himself or should not have been allowed to be totally drenched by water soakers because there could be anything in them. In this day and age, yes, you do have to consider that. Fortunately, Canada is still a country where people first don't think about such things because it's not who we are. But there is additional risk, of course. So yes, that is a concern. Maybe that does need to be addressed. But the Prime Minister allowing himself to just fully participate in the day. This, of course, as mentioned by one of our kits, caused Jamil Javani to somehow lose his mind in such a way that caused him to say something that was just patently ridiculous. And here I'm going to show it for you, kits and cubs. And he says here, and I'm not sure if that is actually big enough for you to read, but it says here, we should never accept a political culture in which politicians have to answer questions about not attending events like this. Those who attend should be the ones answering questions. This follows up on Pierre Poilievre being asked whether or not he would attend Pride and basically said, no, it's not in my plans. Well, of course, it's understandable that it wouldn't be in your plans, Pierre, to attend Pride, given that you are relying very heavily on donations, multiple donations from the anti-trans crowd. And it sure would be inconvenient for you to be asking or accepting donations from the anti-trans crowd if you were showing up at Pride and talking about how you supported and respected our struggle for freedom in a nation that you want allegedly to be the freest nation on earth. We have two of his MPs, Melissa Landsman and Scott Aitchison, organizing some type of boat cruise for members or for people in Scott Aitchison's riding or around there to raise money for Rainbow Railroad. Melissa Landsman, for some reason, doesn't seem to want to be much associated with it when it came time in an interview to ask her. So, well, this is really more Scott's thing, so I would probably leave it to him to answer. She doesn't seem to be all that proud to be associated with that. So that's the breadcrumb they threw to the community. Meanwhile, those of us in the Rainbow community are still waiting from, I think it is 2 years ago, when Pierre Poilievre said that, seemed to hint that he would be attending some Pride events that year, but that he would get back to us on how it is that he intended to highlight and observe and celebrate the fact that we had to struggle for our own freedom and that we enjoy rights today. He never got back to us on what he was going to do 2 years ago, and this year he's not planning to go at all. Gee, I wonder why. Jamil Giovanni felt the need to make a big scene about this. Now, of course, we should never accept a political culture in which politicians have to answer questions about not attending events like this, but those who attend should be the ones answering questions. We should only be demanding accountability for one side. Only the people who attend Pride events should be forced to answer questions about their choices and their behaviors, not all politicians. Why does Jamel Giovanni want people to believe that there should be an exclusion or an exception for accountability for choices and behaviors, the need to justify choices and behaviors for people who don't attend Pride, but only for those who do? Mr. Giovanni, you need to grow up. If you're going to wear some big boy pants and pretend that you're a political leader, one of the things that you have to realize is that absolutely everybody on the planet, no exceptions, are ultimately accountable and ultimately have to answer questions about their choices or behaviors. There are no exceptions. What a childish little hissy fit. Clearly, this is not a serious person, and not a person that is fit for the responsibility he seeks to have for the lives of other people and the power he seeks to have over other people. That is, again, just a ridiculous statement that anybody should be absolved from having to answer questions about their choices and behaviors. That's it's dumb beyond belief. Um, I don't know what else to say about that. Boy, I tell you, conservatives, they don't do very well with accountability, and they don't do very well with any voice other than theirs being put out there. We have also a very interesting moment of, one could say, trolling from the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister recently named Canada's newest Supreme Court, at least nominee. And it is this person, Mr. Justice Glenn Joyal. Let's see if we can get his image up here. This man. Now, if the name Glenn Joyal rings a bell for you, it should. It should, because Justice Joyal was not only the Chief Justice of Manitoba Court's King Bench, but he was also the judge, if you remember, during the time of COVID. He was the judge that two people allegedly with legal backgrounds had tailed to see if they could catch him violating COVID rules. The alleged Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, very pro-Polyev, very hardcore conservative organization, had hired a private investigator to surveil him and catch him breaching COVID-19 lockdown rules during a high-profile court challenge regarding pandemic restrictions in which they were handling the case. Chief Joyal was presiding over a lawsuit brought forward by rural Manitoba churches challenging provincial public health orders. Joyal announced in court that he had been followed by a private investigator to his private residence, his cottage, and that someone had even rung his doorbell while he was away. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom's president, John Carpe, admitted to independently hiring the investigator, claiming it was an attempt to catch the judge violating COVID-19 rules to embarrass him, not to influence the court's decision. Yes, indeed. Both Carpe and his lawyer apologized in court. The incident sparked national outrage and investigations. Ultimately, the lawyers involved faced disciplinary action, leading to them being barred for practicing law for 3 years. Despite the intrusion, Joyal ruled that the pandemic restrictions were reasonable limitations on charter rights. It's amazing. And a second lawyer from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms was charged. Randall J. Cameron was also charged with intimidation of a justice system participant and attempting to obstruct justice. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they were banned for 3 years practicing anywhere else in Canada, but I believed banned for life for practicing in Alberta as a result of this. I'll need to double check that, but I believe that was the case. And as I mentioned, they tailed him. They said not to influence the case, but to embarrass him. But 7 of the rural Manitoba churches in that case were represented by the JCCF, the organization of which John Carpe was the president. So, Justice Joyal has been nominated by the Prime Minister to be the next justice on the Supreme Court of Canada. How is that for a troll? According to Campbell McDermott of CBC News, Canada's new Supreme Court nominee believes that better outreach and communication of the work of the judiciary can restore trust in the institution at a time when judges are under increasing scrutiny. Glenn Joyal, Chief Justice of Manitoba's Court of King's Bench, who has been nominated to Canada's top court, laid out his judicial philosophy as being an institutionalist who views judges as guardians of Canada's constitution during a Monday appearance before parliamentarians ahead of his official confirmation. Quote, in these uncertain and challenging times, our commitment to the rule of law needs to be repeatedly affirmed, Joyal said. He quoted the French diplomat and architect of European integration, Jean Monnet, saying, quote, nothing is possible without human beings, but nothing lasts without institutions. That insight, the judicial oath, along with a compassionate commitment to the rule of law, will be reference points to help guide my path, he said. Over 2.5 hours, Joyal spoke about his 28 career in the judiciary and how he intends to approach his work once appointed to the Supreme Court of Canada. The son of a Franco-Manitoban father and mother of Polish descent, Joyal started as a lawyer in Manitoba before joining the bench in 1998, rising to Chief Justice in 2011. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced his nomination to the Supreme Court last week. MPs and senators probed Joyal on his background and views on jurisprudence, though by protocol he was not asked to comment on specific legislation or past and future decisions before the court. I will also note that this is also not only a troll of the COVIDiots, but also a troll of Stephen Harper. Because if you remember, Stephen Harper tried to name Marc Nadon to the Supreme Court as one of the 3 judges, not from Quebec, but 3 judges with specialization in the Quebec Civil Code, the Justinian Code, when he didn't have any. Under the guise that, well, it was unfair, it was discrimination, that people who were francophones, who didn't have experience in civil law, couldn't be one of the 3 judges from Quebec. It's not 3 judges from Quebec, it's 3 judges who can speak to and have expertise and rule on cases about the Quebec Civil Code, which happens to be only in Quebec. But if the Quebec Civil Code or the Justinian Civil Code was in effect in Quebec and New Brunswick, let's say, it's not about limiting Francophones' ability to sit on the Supreme Court, especially if they're not from Quebec. It's not about that. And it's not about giving Quebec any special treatment. It's about being able to interpret the law and having enough people, at least 3, for there to be able to have an appeal. And that's it. Nothing more. And Stephen Harper tried to appoint Justice Nadeau. And then somebody had to bring that to court. And that appointment had to be deemed unconstitutional. Stephen Harper botched a Supreme Court nomination. And the answer to that was very simple. If you want to have another Francophone on the Supreme Court that has experience in other than civil law in Quebec, you can appoint him. They just have to be one of these 6 other judges. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney just proved that you can appoint a Francophone, not from Quebec, to the court without affecting the 3 positions that are there to be able to interpret the Justinian Code. It's very subtle, but it's very well done. Joyal repeatedly stressed the importance of judicial independence at the time of increased polarization when trust in public institutions is declining and the justice system has come under attack by, quote, demagogy. All of us who care about our constitutional democracy recognize how an independent judiciary best meets the needs of a diverse population in our reach and let's try that again. All of us who care about our constitutional democracy recognize how an independent judiciary best meets the needs of a diverse population in our rich and very pluralistic polity, he said. In particular, he highlighted the judiciary's role balancing the work of the legislative branch. If both institutions aren't working strongly and boldly, and I think assertively, you potentially get an imbalance, he said. That does not mean the judiciary should be, quote, immune or immunized from scrutiny, he said. Quote, I don't believe in defending stupid systems, he said. And to the extent that our systems sometimes need improvement, we can do that. Judges have been, quote, taking up a huge footprint in society since the introduction of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, he said. Quote, we have a big job to do being guardians of the Constitution, but demagogy, misinformation, and disinformation, quote, that corrodes and compromises our institutions had left the judiciary vulnerable, Joyal said. He said its response must be to actively regain the trust of the population with a particular focus on marginalized groups and Indigenous people. Quote, it's a project that requires something more than us simply going out, as we sometimes do in outreach, and trying to explain to people what we do, how we do it, he said. It actually involves listening. Joyal said he was most proud of his work adjudicating R versus Skibicki, a judge-alone trial which resulted in Jeremy Skibicki's conviction on 4 counts of first-degree murder of 4 Indigenous women in Winnipeg in 2022. One of the victims, Ashley Shingoose, was known only as Buffalo Woman at the time of the trial, but later identified through DNA evidence. Joyal agreed to hold a special sitting to receive victim impact statements from Shingoose's relatives. Quote, we made room for her and her family, he said. The fact that we made that effort, I think, went a long way to building some of the trust that we wanted to. Rebuilding trust in the justice system will require further instances of judges actively listening and sensitizing themselves to the lived experience of others, Joyal said. Quote, institutions require that type of reconnection with the people, he said. They really are experiences that I think in the long term will help rebuild not only trust, but legitimacy of institutions that we want to see endure. Earlier on Monday, Justice Minister Sean Fraser described Joyal as, quote, an exceptional jurist who will, quote, uphold the highest standards in all facets of the position. So there you go, kids and cubs. And with that, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you loved listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring. Word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do, especially when you include a little bit of yourself, saying why it is that our content resonated with you, because you are influencers in your own circle, and we thank you for using your influence to promote us. if you would like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, you can scan this QR code, which will bring you to our YouTube page. If you're not watching live from there, please go there and smash with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. And if you're there now, please smash early so you don't have to remember to do it before you leave. That helps us with the algorithm. And if you are watching on your phone fewer than 7 days after the original broadcast, or your tablet, and you can swipe left on the comment section, you will see the opportunity to give us some hype points, which helps smaller audience channels like ourselves gain more exposure. And we thank you for that. And you can do that up to 3 times per week. Other ways that you can support us is financially. If you think that we deserve your support and you are so inclined to do so, you can scan this QR code, which will bring you to the Emergency Hydration Fund at the Beaver Lodge. And you can find that at our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. There you can make a one-time or recurring donation that you can stop anytime you want. You do not get locked in. It just offers us a little bit of stability. And we get about 95 to 97% of your donation. You can also donate on YouTube via Super Chat, stickers, and memberships. We get about 70% of your donation there. And if you are avoiding the USCE tech bros, the ones we were talking about, the ones for whom Donald Trump is threatening 100% tariffs if we should inconvenience them with taxation in any way, shape, or form, then you can make a direct contribution from your bank to ours using our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And that way, no service charges. We get 100% of your donation. It's a win-win for everybody involved. And we thank you for your enthusiastic expressions of encouragement. Because democracy is something that you do, hopefully some of you went to the Fight Forward protests over the course of the weekend or yesterday in Toronto proper at Queen's Park and let your voices be heard. If you did, perhaps it's time for some rest and for celebrating your efforts, because that's a big deal. But if you would like to sign a petition, we have one for you. It's ourcommons.ca, petition number E7395. And I'm going to put that up in the chat for you. And it's a simple one that basically calls upon the House to stop funding Stornoway as an official residence for the leader of the opposition. It kind of takes a new light in the context of the Prime Minister having announced a plan to restore 24 Sussex. Hopefully we'll be able to get to that on another episode. Pierre Poilievre, of course, objects to doing that, while he gets to live in the most luxurious taxpayer-funded public housing that, our money can buy. So, complaining with his belly full a little bit, but if you think that Pierre not wanting 24 Sussex to be refurbished should necessarily mean that he should not be living in Stornoway while the Prime Minister doesn't have a residence, then this might be the petition for you. So please sign it. And of course, kits and cubs, do know that when you are dealing with an ourcommons.ca petition, that you sign it, you get a verification email, and you have to click on that, and then the petition is considered to be signed. All right? Very important. Words of wisdom. Well, it's Canada Day. So once again, like we say every year, regardless of how you observe or choose not to observe, because we all come at it from different perspectives, I hope that your day is filled with love and laughter and lots of caring. If you are celebrating, wave those flags high and have a wonderful time. Be nice to everyone around you, right? As they are supposed to be fun and joyous and peaceful events where we all come together in community. And if you are not observing, but you are doing something else to advocate for your position and why it is, please, I hope that those events also are very fulfilling and rewarding, and you are surrounded by allies, and that you have a great day as well, and that you accomplish what your mission is on that day. So there's room for everybody and for every point of view. I personally am a big fan, so I will definitely be celebrating, but I understand those who don't as well. There's no problem with that. Again, it's a free country. We can choose to observe or not. So if you are, have a wonderful time. And if you're not, whatever you choose to do, I'm hoping that it is also a good and fulfilling time. And I guess that's it for now, kits and cubs. So may I please ask you for a little Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock because, it's a tough world out there and we have to be kind to and gentle with ourselves. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3. Oh, yes, I heard it. There was some, almost like some, oh, Canada, please cue the cock. And I cannot deny you because you asked so wonderfully and patriotically. So here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. And we'll be back with some Canadians who make us proud. I bet you can guess which ones I'm talking about. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kits and cubs, it's time to get our Canada on here. Woohoo! I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Listen, our Les Rouges, they did it. Kits and cubs, first round of the playoffs, and they made history yet again, taking on the Republic of South Africa. We saw the Prime Minister in that clip where he was at Pride talking about the match, talking about the fact that he had placed a phone call to the President of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa, and they had agreed on a pact that whoever would win, that they would support that country going forward in the event. It was a close match. It was a very good match. It was taking place in Inglewood, California. The capacity was 70,492. It was announced that the attendance was 69,237. And it was a very close game. There were yellow cards for Canada. The South African team was very disciplined, didn't have any, but yellow cards for Saliba and Sigur, both for holding. However, we needed to get to stoppage time at the end, and at 2 minutes into stoppage time, Stefan Eustachio made a lovely shot from a certain distance away, but just gave it a kick with lots of power, a bit of a diagonal to it, and went right past the goaltender and into the net. Joyous celebration, of course. By that point in the match, the crowd seemed to have turned towards supporting Canada. So everything was good for the Canadian team there. People were well received. South Africa actually possessed the ball more than Team Canada in the match, 58%, but Canada had 12 shots to 6 and 4 big chances to none for South Africa. And Team Canada also had 25 touches in the opposition box versus 8 for South Africa. So a fairly dominant performance for Team Canada, even though Team South Africa had possession of the ball a bit more. When Canada had its possession, it tended to do a little more with it. According to Chris Jones of CBC, after all the subterfuge, after all the sleepless nights, Jesse March reflected on his players before the most important game of their lives, before the first Men's World Cup knockout game in Canada's history, and went with his runners. In every position, he took the fastest man he had. He went for lungs and he went for legs. It was hearts that decided Sunday's game in the end. Stefan Eustáquio, quiet, steady, unheralded, scored in the second minute of stoppage time to claim a historic last gasp 1-0 win for Canada. Quote, I couldn't think of a more deserving human being in a group of incredible human beings, Marsh said after. Maybe Steph is the most deserving to have a moment like that. It was a goal and a game that changed everything. Canada might have been going home. Instead, it will now head for Houston and the round of 16, where it will face the winner of last night's game between Morocco and the Netherlands on July 4th. That's going to be a big game because Morocco is the number 7 team in the world and the Netherlands were the number 8 team in the world. And last night on penalties, the match was decided in favor of Morocco. So, second playoff match in a row, second playoff match in Canada's history, and the second match in a row against an African nation. I'm wondering if that might be the first time that ever happens in World Cup history, that a nation faces 2 African nations back to back in the knockouts. Quote, everybody on the team shot that ball with me, Eustáquio said, because that's the sort of thing he always says. Quote, when we fight for each other, we play for each other, special things like this can happen. It was more than special. It was extraordinary. It was the sort of moment that can define more than a player or a team. It will define this generation of Canada's soccer talent, and it will create the next. And there is a beautiful image here in the article. Hopefully I can show it to you right here. And there it is. You see, this is number 7 here, Mr. Eustáquio, and you can see he gave it a good diagonal kick this way, and with such force that the goaltender from South Africa, Ronwen Williams, wasn't able to get to the ball in time to block it. And even though Eustáquio, as it says in this article, is unheralded, at least my Beaver sweetie and I, when we have been watching the matches so far, we have been noticing that he seems to be in the right place at the right time very frequently, creating opportunities for good things to happen. There have never been more eyes on Canada's men. Los Angeles Stadium was a magnificent stage. There were few empty seats, likely left unattended by the Korean fans who expected to be there before South Africa's upset win in the group stage. But the crowd was loud and festive and colorful, a spectacular audience. Tens of millions more watched during an electric afternoon across the country and in prime time in South Africa and Europe. The game was Sunday's only fixture, the kickoff to round 32. So it was the only game on the agenda for the day, the only game on the schedule, and it was the first of the playoff matches. So Canada, with the win, became the first of the 32 teams that had made the knockoff round to advance to the round of 16. For Canada's players, it was the sort of game that could change the course of their careers. It was an audition for greatness. Out of all of them, Stefan Eustáquio became the name and the face that Canadian soccer fans will remember forever. Quote, it's just a moment of magic, Alistair Johnston, who's also been quietly excellent this tournament, said after. That is true. Quote, it's one of those moments you'll never forget where you were. It's a magical, magical thing when you think about it. It is, and it took an agonizingly long time to come. The first half began promisingly enough with largely the same lineup that looked tentative in the nervy opener against Bosnia-Herzegovina, minus the sorely missed Ismail Kone. Canada came out with more fight. Its press bordered on the maniacal, as it felt though it might yield some early dividends. But the South Africans, who upset Korea by playing cagey, counter-attacking soccer, managed the pressure and slowed the game. If Canada tried to do everything quickly with urgency, South Africa did everything with a pace-sapping composure. Canada finally managed to bring the game back up to its level with minutes left in the opening half. Its best chance came on a corner when Moise Bombito's header was cleared off the line and Tejan Buchanan's follow-up was smartly saved by Ronwen Williams. Only minutes later, Canada thought it had a penalty when Richie Larea was brought down in the box. It was almost certainly a penalty by Premier League standards, but it was the sort of call that hasn't been given at this World Cup, and it wasn't given again. When the whistle blew at half, an enraged Marsh made for the referee. Let's try that again. When the whistle blew at half, an enraged Marsh made for the referees before he was held back and redirected by Bombito. Marsh was likely equally frustrated by his team's play. It wasn't a bad half, but it wasn't as emphatic as he would have liked, and the hydration break flattened Canada. Jonathan David and Tani Oluwaseyi were especially muted up front. They combined to miss a great chance midway through the second half. Oluwasi ran through on a semi-breakaway, and his lunging shot was saved by Williams by a whisper of his wrist. The ball went high, and a charging David probably should have thrown himself harder at it. Instead, the South Africans cleared another threat. Marsh soon summoned waves of substitutes, including Alphonso Davies, who made his first appearance for the national team in more than a year. When he arrived, Eustachio, who had served admirably as captain in his absence, took off his armband and put it on Davies. That small gesture felt less like a torch passing than a relinquishing, as though Eustachio had once again accepted his forever place in the background. It made his gorgeous goal, a long volley into the bottom corner after an incomplete South African clearance, even sweeter for the teammates who enveloped him after. Quote, honestly, one of the perfect guys to score and take us to the next round, Laria said. For him to get that goal, for everything he's done in this jersey since he started, I think it's special. I'm very happy for him. As much as that goal meant to Eustachio, his teammates, and his country, it was a devastating turn for the South Africans. It was their first World Cup knockout round appearance too, and there were stretches of the game when it seemed their craftier approach might win it, or at least send it to an inevitable, seeming extra time. Obviously, it's a difficult one, Williams said. A lot of tired legs. It wasn't a dangerous ball inside the box. We had it covered, but I mean, amazing finish, and that's what you need at this level sometimes. When the game is back and forth, you need someone to have that luck. I think luck was on their side today, and that's how football goes sometimes. The coin falls and it flips for you. It's true that Canada was fortunate to win in some ways. It earned its first place in the round of 16, absolutely, but the South Africans could have claimed it after a far different set of memories. But Eustachio, the man, wasn't lucky. He was courageous, and he was tireless, and he was clinical, and he was selfless. When it mattered the most in his life, when he had a moment and a ball and every possible fate in front of him, he took his chance and buried it. I shot, he said, with everything I had. And then he turned and he ran into the arms of history. It was a fantastic match, absolutely fantastic match. And listen, it is true that Morocco is number 7 in the world and we are number 30 in the world. It's true. It looks like a matchup that is lopsided, especially considering the occasion and that it's all new for the Canadian team. But as I mentioned before, football sometimes can be in any given Sunday sport. And when you're at the point where everything more is gravy, which is the case for us, as I mentioned in a previous show, sometimes you just develop a taste for making your own gravy. So there is reason to hope. There is reason to hope. This is a great opportunity, but regardless of the outcome of the next match, Canada is now, even though the rankings probably won't show it, but based on World Cup performance, one of the top 16 teams in the world. That's pretty impressive. And they are the team that now earn the right to play the giants, like Morocco or the Netherlands or Germany or Argentina or France. You first start by winning the right to play, to be considered in the same breath, to be able to share the same pitch. And eventually, if you do that often enough, sometimes you become giant killers and maybe eventually a giant yourself. So, again, I'm all in. Go Canada, go. Go Canada, go. Next match is, interestingly, on the 4th of July in the United States. What a great day it would be for us to get such a win symbolically. Let the world know even more, because we have let them know that we're here, and maybe we're even here to stay. Just a great match, great game, great result. Again, the character that the Prime Minister commented on in its match against Qatar was on full display there. Lots of boys, lots of girls are going to be very happy about this. It's going to inspire a lot of people. And just think about it. 25 years ago, we were nowhere really as a soccer nation. And now there's professional soccer on our own soil. We have a women's league on our own soil. And we have a men's team and a women's team national who led the way, especially the women's team who led the way, making us, we are a soccer nation now. There's no doubt about it. And while the sport might still be new to a lot of us, especially those of us who are multi-generation Canadian born, uh, we might have a new national pastime to start looking into. And for soccer, it is very quite possible that this goal by Eustachio could go down as being the equivalent for men's soccer, because we have that Olympic gold medal winning goal for the women. But for men's soccer, at least until we get a goal that brings us to even higher heights, that's our Paul Henderson moment, pretty much, for men's soccer. It's very, very rewarding. And we need this at this particular time, especially since seem to have a political party inside us, inside the nation, that seems to want to convince us that we're broken and that nothing good can come from us. Well, we showed them different. We can come together. We can have a moment as a nation. We can celebrate it. And we can all be, at least for a moment or two, all rowing in the same direction, hoping and wishing and cheering for the absolute best of Canada to be put on display for the whole world to see. And that made me very proud. So before we go, let's put on our screen the face that will go down in history as the man so far has scored the biggest goal in Canadian men's soccer, Mr. Stéphane Eustachio. Now we've got a couple of days to rest up. Let's go get that win against Morocco. All right. And with that, I am done. I will see you tomorrow. Not sure whether or not it will be live or pre-record, but I will see you tomorrow. All right? Be kind to and gentle with yourself. Amour et bisous. And we will see you very soon. Happy Canada Day Eve. Woohoo!